In this series, we take you on a culinary ramble through the wild foods of Britain. We'll show you how to identify them, prepare some delicious dishes that'll hardly cost you a penny, turning a stroll in the countryside into an exciting gastronomic outing. Welcome to the Forager's Field Guide. Well, I'm heading for the Severn Vale today, which I'm really excited about because I think it's a great part of the world. It's got this wonderful old-fashioned farming culture, old hedgerows. It used to be famous for its orchards too, and at this time of year, mid-September, it's a sort of golden period for foraging. I met up with Christopher, my foraging guide, in a beautiful old orchard where he insisted on marching me up to the top of the hill before we got underway. Sort of late summer, early autumn. Time for foraging, I guess, but why here? What have you brought me for?
Well, Matthew, if you look around us, what do you see? We've got this beautiful, beautiful, typical English landscape, and it's a very old traditional farming area. The hedgerows, which are all around us, quite close together, tall and overgrown, and from a forager's point of view, that's bliss because they're full of interesting native plants that will have at this time of year treasure for us.
Intrigued at the prospect of finding treasure, we set off on another culinary ramble. As we surveyed the hedgerows, Christopher reminded me of a few basic foraging rules. First, always ask the landowner's permission before foraging and make sure you know what you're gathering. Take a good field guide with you to help identify plants, and if you're at all uncertain, don't risk it. Find safe sites to forage away from roads or other sources of pollution, and only gather small quantities of each species so plants can grow back again. Well, this looks like a classic piece of hedgerow.
Isn't it beautiful? Old, overgrown.
Hips up there.
Lots of things in there. There's blackberries.
Oh, this is elder, isn't it?
It is indeed. This is our old friend. Look, last seen with flowers all over, but now you can see these flowers have gone to these lovely dark, almost black, luscious berries in big bunches. And you'll know when they're ready because they go this lovely colour, and you'll see them hanging in the bush, so they're full and heavy. That's when you pick them. You can actually pick the whole thing. It just snaps off very easily. Pick the whole bunch, and that's perfect for doing syrups or, jellies or delicious.
Nice, quite tart flavour, but absolutely delicious.
Yeah, but don't eat too many, because if you have them raw, they're quite interesting. They're very cathartic, which means a very strong laxative. It was very uncomfortable.
Well, I'm not in need of that just at the moment.
You haven't brought extra clothing with you either, so don't eat any more. But interestingly, when you cook them, you lose that effect completely. And in fact, they just encourage a totally healthy bowel movement. But it's only when they're raw, never eat them. But when they're cooked, totally different.
Well, we have a few of those. You don't know what we might find to do with them back in the kitchen.
Let's get a few more.
Reassured by the fact that forage foods not only taste good, but do you good as well, we sought out more wild fruits to add to our hedgerow harvest.
I noticed they planted some new ones.
Well, this is sort of traditional hedgerow, isn't it? Sort of place where you might find damsons, do you reckon?
It is, on an old farmland.
Oh, here we are. This is a damson tree, unless I'm
just fitting into the height and the picture generally of the hedgerow. There it is, look at that, and what a crop.
Absolutely fantastic.
That's stunning, isn't
Now,
it?
how do you tell whether they're ripe or not?
Well, that's a good question, because they tend to colour up quite early, but when they're ripe, you can squeeze them. It's a bit like squeezing a tennis ball or a squash ball. They've got that give, but they're soft. There's nothing there's nothing hard in there.
Are they a true wild plum?
No, but they're native here, and then they've been domesticated.
Yeah.
And then what's happened, like this one, here we are, not in an orchard, but it's in a hedgerow, they've gone feral. But they're such beautiful fruit, aren't they? Look at this bloom. I mean, these are almost grey, and there's wonderful bloom on them, and you can just
Rub it off with your fingers.
and that's beautiful. That's the wax, natural wax of the fruit.
Really?
Yeah. But when you cook them, because one of my favourite jams is damson.
Yes.
And when you cook them, you get this beautiful crimson.
Dark
Crimson. But also the flavour is unlike any other plum you want to make jam from, by far.
They're not really up for eating as a table plum, are they? I mean, really quite sharp.
It is a cooking plum, not a table plum.
I think you can say that again. Surely something that tastes so medicinal must have some sort of health properties.
The only that I'm aware of, like all of the plum family, they're very good bulking agents, so they're very good for the bowel. Prunes are obviously dried plums.
Well, I must say, Christopher, one of the joys of going on these foraging expeditions with you is that I realise that many of my greatest pleasures also have tremendous health benefits. My trug laden with damsons and elderberries, we came across a wild berry that nearly everyone's foraged for at some time or other in their lives. Blackberries. My favourite, the favourite of my childhood. We used to go out as a family and always pick these. I think they're very easy to sort of recognise. Big, black, round, glossy, beautiful, and sort of sweet and delicious.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? These beautiful, beautiful blackberries, and look at this perfect time of year to be harvesting them. And you can tell just by looking, when they're nice and black and lush like that, and they just drop off in your hand. But there's probably about a good 6 weeks of picking.
There's some legend, isn't there, that you have to stop picking on October the 10th, or the devil will have his terrible way with you. I think that's pretty good rubbish myself. I think it's actually when the first frost comes, that's when they sort of go mushy and they lose their flavour.
But it's still a nice long season for forage, isn't it? From midsummer till probably from now, take us to mid-October, and the devil.
Means we can come back again and again and again. Yeah. And maybe we can pick some of these high ones as well. Notice this is why I carry the walking stick.
Is that a forager's tool, is it?
Absolutely essential. Oh. It's useful for this kind of thing, really, just putting down branches and holding them there. So you don't actually damage the tree at all, and some more.
It is interesting. They're so common, aren't they? So prolific and so common.
And they are such a wonderfully versatile fruit. My mother used to make blackberry milk shakes, which we used to adore, end up with sort of purple moustaches. Jellies, jams. How do you eat them?
Well, I just like pure, fresh blackberries, possibly with some nice Greek yogurt. Unmutilated by cooking, they're just delicious. There's
unmutilated? Excuse me.
But it's partly, I think, for me, is this idea of just picking fruit on the trot. And when blackberries, as we're saying, I mean, it's probably one of the first ones I ever picked quantities of, and it's almost a spiritual thing. Fresh blackberries, some yogurt.
It's lovely and sweet. I think these are the absolute perfect autumn foraging fruit. And wonderfully versatile in the kitchen, really.
And probably I wonder if in history too there's a link, because I mean they are extremely valuable food. We just think of noshing them and enjoying them, but in fact they contain as much vitamin C perhaps as rose hips, and probably as a strawberry. They're very high in vitamin C.
So they don't just taste good, they actually do you good as well.
Oh indeed, very, very good fruit to eat.
Well, I think that should be just about enough to get started.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with them.
Christopher and I had a wonderful morning's foraging. We found damsons, elderberries and blackberries. Now, I'm not going to make any of the dishes that I suggested this morning. I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I think this is a wonderful recipe that captures their flavour and gives them a slightly different treatment. It involves some eggs, a little bit of buttermilk, some flour with sugar and salt and bicarbonate of soda and baking powder, melted butter, and of course blackberries. And I'll start by whisking the eggs. Well, beating the egg white is about the hardest part of this recipe. You've got to get the eggs nice and fluffy. It takes a bit of work. And I think we're just about there now. Yes, yep, I think that's just right. Nice and fluffy. Now, next thing I do is pour in the buttermilk and stir that in. And then next thing is the teaspoonful of bicarbonate of soda and beat that in. And that's the sort of basis of the batter, and it's now ready for us to add the flour, the sugar, the salt and the baking powder. Oh, it's all frothed up a bit, looking very fancy. Anyway, you have to beat it good and hard to make sure there are no lumps in it. It's a nice smooth batter. You don't want any sort of floury bits when you come to eat it, and I think that's just about right. And the next bit is the butter, the melted butter, which just helps add a bit of richness to the mixture, and just stir that in, work it in, and it just makes a lovely smooth, it brings a sort of gloss to the batter. It looks really beautiful. And in go the hero ingredient, those wonderful blackberries that Christopher and I picked this morning, all black and glistening. In they go. Just stir them in so that they're all covered round with the batter, and they make it lovely, so this slightly lumpy looking, but I think it'll be very, very tasty. So let's put some of the batter on. And you read it in quite small, there's no point in it's quite small amounts. You don't want huge great pancakes. And the thing to do is you just watch them frying like that in the butter. And then when the holes begin to appear on the top surface, then it's time to turn them over. I would say that's just about ready now. Yes, and off she comes, and look at that. What a handsome looking dish. Ah, Christopher! Arrived absolutely hot off the griddle. There you are.
That looks wonderful.
Blackberry pancakes. Go on, help yourself.
Delicious smell. Look at that colour running through that.
Yeah, give me a bit. You have that bit, I'll have that bit. And you can see
They look
this
very fine, don't they?
sort of chunky with blackberries, I'd say. Little, I would call those pancakes with blackberry nuggets. All the flavours of autumn, each little mouthful. Tricky. Oh, the sun's golden, the sun's coming. Historically, orchards were a common feature of the Severn Vale, and before the war, more than 100 varieties of apples and pears were grown in Gloucestershire. Sadly, 75% of these orchards have been lost in the past 50 years due to changes in farming practices. While it's tragic that so many of these varieties have disappeared, Christopher assured me that there were still plenty of wild apples to gather in the surrounding hedgerows. It looks like an apple tree, or was it a crab apple tree?
Well,
You tell me.
I don't think it looks like a crab to me. It looks more like a cider apple, or it might be a feral apple from an orchard. But it doesn't affect our purpose, and that is that whether it's a crab or a cider, they're still very good for cooking.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's because they're green.
They're not for eating, are they?
No, the best ones are the riper ones that will have fallen, or we tickle the tree, and we can get some down.
Tickle the tree, you mean?
They're riper.
Tickle the tree with
the
this?
famous,
Shall I give it a go?
the signature.
Let's see if I can get hold of a branch underneath here somewhere. Okay, ready?
That'll do, that's lovely.
Oh,
Now these are
that's very good.
not perfectly ripe, the riper ones, and these are the ones we can actually start using.
What we call windfalls, I think.
Good.
They're not at all like the supermarket varieties.
No, well most of the dessert apples that you're going to find will be very sweet, but they don't have much flavour, and the beauty of these wild apples and crabs is that they tend to have no sugar to speak of. They're really quite tart even when they're ripe, but they've got a much better flavour, particularly for cooking, and the flavour's in the skin as much as the flesh, and in the pips in the middle. So.
Well, I think that the sharp flavour actually gives me an idea or two for what to cook with. I think you go very well with those sort of rich meats that you get at this time of year.
Sounds good to me.
Does it? Okay.
Yes, we got
That's
enough.
good. Well, put in those ones you've got there, and let's head back to the kitchen. As we went on our way, it was nice to see some wonderful Tamworths and Gloucester Old Spot pigs doing their own bit of apple foraging. While I headed back for the kitchen, I left Christopher out foraging for a few more early autumn hedgerow delicacies.
Just look at this beautiful climbing briar, classic of the hedgerow. This time of year, midsummer onwards, right through the winter they last, these lovely chips. Very good source of vitamin C, and in fact in the last war the government was collecting them to make a syrup which was distributed to the population because there was very little imported fruit. And for us now, we could harvest them, and it makes a stunningly red and beautifully tangy, really almost acrid, but beautiful, coloured and tasting syrup or jelly. Other hedgerow fruits to look out for in September include the deep red berries of the hawthorn tree, which can be made into a bright crimson jelly, an excellent natural remedy for angina. Hazelnuts are usually found in clusters of 2 or 3 nuts. When ripe, they turn a wonderful tan colour. Pick them early when they're green, but before the squirrels get the lot. You can eat them fresh from the tree, or they're delicious, lightly roasted in a pan.
I wanted to make a dish that makes full use of these wonderful autumn ingredients, these apples that we picked earlier, found in the hedgerows, round and about. They're quite green and they're quite tart and they're quite sharp, and I thought they go terribly well with what I think of as a classic autumn meat, pork. Now, I think we need to build on the flavours a bit, so a bit of onion, a bit of sage, a glass of apple juice to provide the liquid, and then at the end of cooking, if we need to adjust the flavours a bit, add a bit of sweetness, some crabapple jelly, so that everything comes from the same range of flavours. So I'm going to start off by taking off the skin off the pork, because we don't want to cook it with that. You have to be really quite careful about this, so that you don't actually cut into the meat at all. Cut it off at the bottom, and there we have, all in one piece, the pork skin. Put it in a roasting tray, and that's going to make the most fabulous crackling, lovely golden brown crackling, and who doesn't like that? That's the crackling underway. So the next thing is to start cooking the pork. The first thing is to do is to put in a bit of fat here. I've got some pork fat actually from earlier cookings. Just scrape that in with the picture, because we're going to brown the pork in the pork fat all over, so it has lovely sort of amber crust on the outside. You've got to get the fat really smoking hot, because when you put the meat in there, you want it to really to brown very quickly, and if fat isn't hot enough, then it'll just cool down. Now, see, it's just beginning to smoke there, and I think now is the time to put the meat in. So I'm going to put one end in first. Right, I think that should be brown on one side, so let's ease it off, and oh yes, lovely sort of well tanned colour, and turn it over and do the other side. While the pork's browning, we can get on with the other ingredients. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to chop up the crab apples. Well, not so much chop them up, but just cut them into quarters very quickly and easily. The point of that is that during the cooking process, it helps to sort of release the juices much more easily, and they'll cook down, giving all their flavour to the sauce that the pork will also be giving its flavour to. So just quickly cutting those up. I've left the stalks on. They all look a bit, you know, they've got a bit of imperfections on them, but I don't think that matters. It's the flavour that comes out of them that we actually want. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is the onion, and that's just a very simple thing to do. Cut it in half. Then all we have to do now is to put all of those into the casserole along with the pork, add the other ingredients. In go the lovely green crab apples, and then just 4 leaves of sage. The onions, shove those in. Last of all, a glass of apple juice, just to provide some essential cooking liquid. There we go. The pork's got into the oven for a couple of hours, so it'll slowly, very slowly cook, and all the flavours build up and produce one of the most wonderful, satisfying autumn dishes you're ever likely to eat.
While the pork was cooking away, I thought I'd make use of the wild damsons and elderberries that we'd picked earlier to make a delicious autumn pudding. Cover the base of an oven-proof dish with the damsons and elderberries, using a fork to strip the elderberries from their stalks. Sprinkle on a couple of dessert spoonfuls of sugar to counteract the tartness of the fruit, and then heap on the crumble mix made from flour, butter and sugar. Smooth the surface with the back of a spoon to seal in the flavours, and pop in a hot oven for about 30 minutes. Serve piping hot, and then savour the taste of a fantastic damson and elderberry crumble.
Christopher!
Hello, Matthew.
Hi there. Good, you have been busy. What have you got there?
Well, we've got hips, haws and hazels.
And these are hips?
Yes, there's two sorts of hips. There's these lovely fat ones and there's the smaller dog roses.
And these are haws?
Yeah, these are the haws. They're from the hawthorn plant, much smaller.
And the hazelnuts
And the small hazels, yeah.
What do you do with these?
With the rose hips,
Yeah.
well, they were used famously in the last war, saving the population by supplying vitamin C in the form of syrup. So this is some rose hip syrup I made last year.
Oh, do you know, I remember that as a small boy. I've always been given some. It's rather good, if I remember rightly. It's distinctive. It has that sort of slightly wild, tangy flavour. You're quite right, and a bit of vanilla in there as well. Well, I haven't been idle either, you'd be pleased to hear.
Show me what you've got.
Remember those crab apples?
Yes.
Well, I've put them to good use, cooking them with some with a loin of pork there and some apple juice.
It smells absolutely beautiful. Interesting too that the tang of the onion and the pork doesn't dominate that lovely crab apple smell you can still get through.
Well, I'll get the sauce prepared and serve you up outside.
I'll get ready, clean these up.
A spoonful of crabapple jelly adds a refreshing sweetness to the gravy.
Delicious.
Then simply serve with hot crackling and fresh vegetables from the garden.
Here we are, Christopher. Your lunchtime feast. Pork with a sauce made from crab apples, sage, apple juice, and a few vegetables from the garden.
Goodness, that looks absolutely beautiful, Matthew.
And I hope you're impressed by the crackling. Proper crackling.
I can see it and I could hear it as you came in. It was still crunching and clicking away. This looks rather good. I love the liquidity of that sauce, which goes so well with the dryness of the pork. And the flavour of the apple is everywhere.
Oh, a piece of crackling here too.
Crackling, son. Oh, that's crackling.
Explosive it is. Beautiful. Well, we've got lovely meat and those beautiful foraged fruits. I mean, what more do you need?
Just a repeat meal.
Cheers.
Cheers. Here's to apples.
Join us next time when we'll be heading for the spectacular Somerset coast to forage for some unusual but wonderful seashore delicacies.